Thank you. In the last 30 years that I've been involved in this issue, I've seen an enormous increase in public awareness on this question. More op-eds printed, more letters to the editor, even a growth of awareness within the American Jewish community, just incredibly different. 30 years ago, Norman Finkelstein and I spoke here, and we were shouted down. And it's just an incredible difference between, this evening. But nonetheless, even though that has happened, many, many people here have been to the West Bank and Gaza and so on, Congress, no matter what Israel does, invade Lebanon, invade Gaza, build settlements which humiliate our diplomats and so on, and statements like this, whenever Israel does something outrageous, they have a resolution that comes forward and everyone votes for it, including our own representative, who's a great guy on all kinds of social issues. And I've met with him and brought him information and whatever. What can we do to reverse this so that somebody like Deval Patrick, for instance, would even have a clue that making a business arrangement, which he just did with Israel, has some moral overtones and political overtones? Nobody would have done that in the 80s with South Africa. They would have known that there was a political cost, or they might have known there was a political cost. What can we do to help that? Because despite the public opinion, members of Congress are overwhelmingly voting, unquestionably for Israel.
Yeah. Well, what you say is absolutely right. I mean, I've been doing this since the 60s. I mean, not very long ago, I'd have to have police protection. I was giving a talk. And yes, meetings were broken up, and just even a couple of years ago. So yeah, that's changed enormously. But the comparison to South Africa in the 80s is not quite accurate because, by the 80s, even U.S. business was opposed to apartheid. Okay, that Congress was passing resolutions and so on. I mean, you compare it to the 60s or the 50s, it's more like the case of Israel. There's a lot of public opposition to races, but nothing in public policy. It took a lot of work. There was a lot of organizing, activism, education, and it made a breakthrough. So the first sanctions proposal at a university, at least, as I recall, I think was as late as 1977 at Hampshire. Kind of a university that's kind of on the outside. And that was after a long time. And by then, even American corporations were starting to pull out. So, and in fact, what you describe here with regard to the gap, first of all, don't forget, we're not a majority. I mean, you're right that there's a big change, but that's a long way from saying, we speak for the people, It's the Maoist slogans. Got a long way to go. But it's a big change. But just think about American politics. I mean, even where the public is overwhelmingly in favor of something, it almost never affects policy if it harms business interests. Okay, so take say healthcare, big issue. I mean, right now we're all supposed to, be worried about how to cut the deficit. A pretty straightforward way to get rid of the deficit. And any economists who look at this are fully aware of it. You want to get rid of the deficit, establish a healthcare system like other industrial countries. Now, that's not exactly a utopian goal. Every other industrial country has national healthcare systems which have about half the per capita cost of the United States and generally have better outcomes. And don't have tens of thousands of people without insurance. So in fact, I can refer you to the sources if you want, but it's been worked out. If we had the same kind of healthcare system as other industrial countries, we would not only not have a deficit, we'd have a surplus. Is anybody suggesting that? I mean, no, it sounds insane. How can you oppose the insurance companies and the financial corporations? I mean, they're the guys who fund elections. They're the ones who put Obama into office. That's maybe a third of corporate profits. You can't offend them. Doesn't matter what the public wants. I mean, when Obama gave away the public option, and remember, he gave it away without even an effort. I was over the opposition of about close to 2/3 of the population. Did it make any difference? When he made his deal with the pharmaceutical corporations, drug prices in the United States are 2 or 3 times as high as anywhere else. The reason is that the U.S. is, I think, alone in the world in having a legislative framework which prevents the government from negotiating drug prices. So, of course, they're sky high. Every other country does that. Actually, the U.S. does it too for the Veterans Administration, and there the drug prices are more or less under control. Well, Obama gave that one away too. There was only one poll about it, but it was 85% opposition. Did it make any difference? No. I mean, if you have a country that's run by concentrations of capital, at the moment it happens to be heavily the financial institutions, as long as you can keep the public quiet, it doesn't matter what they think. And that's true on issue after issue. And furthermore, the public knows it. You take a look at, for years, ever since the Reagan years, there have been regular polls, good polling agencies on where people are asked, who do you think the government works for? And you get figures like about 80% often saying that the government works for the few and the special interests, not for the people. Well, they don't ask who do you mean by special interests, but that would be the next question. But whatever people mean, they're basically correct. And that's one of the reasons, I'm sure, why there's such anger, frustration, hatred of all institutions. I mean, the attitudes toward just about every institution are in, like often single digits, double digits. Well, because people hate everything that's going on, but they don't think they can do anything about it. And what does get done is extremely destructive. But so yeah, you're right about Israel, but it generalizes. We've got a big problem about the democracy deficit in the country.